Hi, I'm Jason Ross, and I'd like to welcome you to this EIR seminar on how the Bering Strait Tunnel project can open up a new era of peace and development for the world. We have a very exciting group of speakers today, ready to fire up our imagination about how linking Russia and Alaska, Eurasia and the Americas can serve as not only a bridge between continents, but a moral bridge to a better paradigm of international relations. I'd ask that whatever video platform you are watching this on, you like, subscribe, turn on notifications if relevant. And I'll mention to those joining us live on Zoom that interpretation is available into Spanish and German, and you can turn that on by selecting the relevant option. For daily insights into the state of the world and on actions you can take to shape its future, I encourage you to sign up with us at eir.news, where you can purchase access to our daily news updates, our in-depth strategic magazine. Sign up at eir.news and you can get a free trial. So now let me introduce our very distinguished panel of speakers that we have for today. We will be hearing from Helga Zepp-LaRouche, EIR's editor-in-chief, who convened this meeting. We'll be hearing from Scott Spencer, who is the chief project advisor for Intercontinental Railway. We'll hear from Dr. Viktor Razbegin of the Interhemispheric Bering Strait Tunnel and Railway Group. We will hear from Lyndon LaRouche from a historical video of a seminar he participated in Russia on these topics. We have Azer Mamedov, who is the first deputy CEO of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, Professor Enzo Siviero, an expert on construction, Russian historian Dr. Alexander Bobrov, and perhaps some more as well in the discussion period. So I'd like to thank all of our speakers for being with us today. Really glad to have you with us. We will be having a discussion period after the main presentations are over. If you are joining on YouTube live, of course, or Zoom, you can add comments in the YouTube comment stream or in the Zoom chat, and we will be able to take some of these and pose them to our speakers during the discussion period. Because we want to have a fruitful discussion period, I do ask that our speakers and commenters keep their comments as concise as they can so that we can have more interaction. So I turn now to Helga Zepp-LaRouche, the editor-in-chief of EIR and the convener of today's meeting. Helga Zepp-LaRouche.
Thank you, Jason, and hello to all of you. And I must say it is a real joy for me to speak on the topic of the Bering Strait Tunnel, because unlike many cynics who only have dollar notes in their eyes and think that this will lead to an incredible economic investment potential, which it does without any question. But I think on a much more fundamental level, I think the realization of the Bering Strait Tunnel is potentially and very likely the answer if we have war or peace. Because if we get to an agreement between the two largest nuclear powers in the world to replace confrontation with a cooperation which is in the benefit not only of those two countries, but actually of all countries in the world, it can be the game changer which marks the difference and the departure from the present extremely dangerous moment in history. Now, what we have to do with the Bering Strait, I think, is straightforward. My late husband, Lyndon LaRouche, already was promoting the construction of the Bering Strait Tunnel as early as 1978, which is when he first started to mention it and write about it. And then naturally, he participated in a very important conference of the SOPS, which is the Russian Council for the Study of Productive Forces, which is a joint institution of the Russian Academy of Science and the Russian Ministry of Economic Development, where he presented a paper on the topic. And also then Mr. Razbegin, who I very heartfelt greet here, participated in a conference we had with the Schiller Institute in the same year in the German town of Kiedrich, where he contributed a major paper. Now, it was clear to us for the whole time that the link between the Americas and the Eurasian landmass would really open up a key link of what we later produced as the report, The New Silk Road Becomes the World Land Bridge, which presented the idea after President Xi Jinping had announced the New Silk Road to be the key project of China in 2013 in Kazakhstan. We published this study about the World Land Bridge, which is the idea that eventually in the continuous development of infrastructure and the opening up of all continents of the planet through infrastructure development, eventually the whole world would be connected through a system of tunnels and bridges. And if you build the Bering Strait tunnel in a few years, you can travel with a fast train system from the southern tip of Argentina or Chile all the way up Latin America, northwest, Central America, North America, Canada, Alaska, through the tunnel to Siberia, and continue your journey through the Trans-Siberian Railway line, tunnel through Gibraltar. Eventually, you end up in the southern tip of Africa at the Cape of Good Hope. And naturally, all of Eurasia will be connected through a similar network of corridors and fast train systems. So this is why I think that the building of the Bering Strait tunnel, which has been discussed since the 19th century, and which has been a very visionary idea of many people, including Khrushchev, Kennedy, many others who were talking about it, will open up a new chapter in the history of mankind. Because the idea is not just a transport line from Alaska to the Siberian coast, some line from A to B, but it is the centerpiece of the notion of the corridor. That means, for example, on the Russian side, 4,000 kilometers of fast train will be built and 2,000 kilometers on the side of Canada and Alaska. But that will be only one artery in this corridor, which will also contain highways, energy production and distribution, communication, so that basically what you are doing is you are opening up the vast areas of the north of America, that's Canada and Alaska, and on the Russian side, the Far East, which large parts are now still under permanent frost conditions, but where you can find all elements of Mendeleev's periodic table. And naturally, if these vast areas are opened up for infrastructure and the same conditions are created in terms of density of infrastructure, like you normally only find at rivers or coastal lines, that means that the productivity of these vast land masses eventually can become as high as industrial centers in all parts of the world are right now. Now, that is also an answer to the question of who should pay this. I think some experts, some of whom you will hear shortly, have pointed out to the fact that the project will pay for itself after only 15 years or so. Elon Musk, who has announced that his boring machine can actually be the instrument to create this tunnel, said it can be built in 8 years for $8 billion. But the potential of economic productivity and prosperity it opens up is gigantic. It is probably the largest infrastructure project in the world ever, because it has such enormous implication for all countries who are poor of raw materials, who are poor of energy. They can participate. And actually, at the recent several years of Vladivostok economic forums, President Putin and others have invited other countries to participate because the investments in the development of this area are so vast that it's open for everybody who wants to be part of this. So I think this is an incredibly important development. And as I said, it has a peace building aspect to it because the people who are going absolutely crazy about this idea, which you can see in the Western media right now, who President Trump was asked in a press conference, and he said that it may not happen that he meets with President Putin in Budapest at the end of the month, and then the media immediately said, this means the project is over, it doesn't happen. And they did not report how President Trump continued his sentence because he said, things are happening very quickly, so I don't know what will happen. We will inform you within 2 days what will happen. Foreign Minister Lavrov said, we are continuing to talk with Secretary of State Rubio. And, there is no sign that the project is off the table. But the Western media went into an absolute hysterical coverage to basically declare the end of this project, which is completely wrong, and I think it will be proven completely ridiculous. Now, obviously, the context of this is clearer when you listen to what the head of the Russian Foreign Intelligence, Sergei Narishkin, said, who said that the Russian intelligence has evidence that the NATO countries are fully preparing for a war with Russia and that they are in a campaign to try to convince their populations that a war with Russia is inevitable. Now, I can only confirm that, the media campaigns in Germany are absolutely unbelievable. And Pistorius, the defense minister, who says Germany must become war ready. I mean, this is all absolutely the wrong way. But I'm convinced that if this project of the Bering Strait tunnel can be concluded and agreed upon to be built, then the momentum of history is on the side of the peacemakers, and it will eventually affect everybody, including European. Now, I would say I have a little hope that Europe will not remain hostile to that, but recognize that its own interest is potentially in the participation in some form in this project, simply because of the fact that the name Bering is the name of a Danish person, Vitus Jonasson Bering, a Dane who lived from 1681 to 1741, who had been given the task by Peter the Great at the time to lead the first Kamchatka expedition to explore and map out if Russia was connected with America. And he indeed produced incredibly precise maps to this effect. And that's why the Bering Strait has his name. So let me take that as a little hopeful sign that also Europe will take a positive attitude towards this project. And I want to end here and just express my extreme optimism about this perspective.
Great. Helga Zepp-LaRouche, thank you. We turn next to Scott Spencer, the Chief Project Advisor of Intercontinental Railway. Scott Spencer recently gave an interview to EIR's Richard Freeman, which will be published, and I'll tell you after he speaks about how you can get a copy for yourself. He'll be sharing with us his ideas on the prospects for the tunnel project. Scott Spencer, you have the floor.
Well, good day to everyone. Thank you, Helga Zepp-LaRouche, for the wonderful introduction and perspective you gave us about this very important inflection point in history. All great projects have inflection points, not just one, but many throughout the history of the project. And so we are in that right now. And I want to thank EIR for organizing this roundtable promptly at a very important time. And I'm very happy to be in this roundtable with my dear friends, Dr. Viktor Razbegin, who you'll hear from later, and Rick Minnick, who is the director of the documentary that really shows what a monumental undertaking it is, and I think will stand the test of time of showing how this project ultimately leads to the success that is so important to the world. I say an inflection point because we've seen some hopeful signs about the opportunity for peace between Ukraine and Russia. That peace will come despite the risk of the war going sideways and involving Europe. And there are many moving pieces here, but I think the Intercontinental Railway is an important piece to get to peace, because the cost of that war between Ukraine and Russia far exceeds the cost of this project and does not bring the world any benefit, but the horrendous loss of life, both with Russians and Ukrainians. I say this because this is something that President Trump and President Putin can agree on, this project. I think it's a hopeful sign as well that not once but twice TASS has reached out to me to be interviewed, most recently just in the last few days, about the potential of this project influencing a way to rebuild the relationships between the United States and Russia. The Kremlin's economic advisor, Kirill Dmitriev, was very much putting the project out in front of the world with his remarks last week about the need for, let's just get together and build it. So I spoke to TASS with that opportunity to say that it certainly is a mutually beneficial project. And what's important to know about this project is it's going to be built. But there's really, with something as complex as this, there's really only two questions. Who is going to make the decision with the leadership to get it built? And number two, when it's built, people are going to say, why didn't we do this sooner? It's incredible, the benefits of this project. So I'll just give you a highlight of this. And as I said, my friend, Dr. Viktor Razbegin, who has been instrumental in strengthening the relationships between the United States and Russia on this project. You can see more details on our website, intercontinentalrailway.com. But Dr. Razbegin helped organize some very informative discussions in Moscow and in Yakutsk about the prospects of this railway in Russia that we all learn from in those trips. So I'm going to share my screen with the next few minutes I have available just to give you a highlight of, let's see, the highlight of the project here. It's not giving me my shared screen. It's just giving me choices of photos and drives. Anybody have advice how to share my screen here? Because I just see share, which I normally use on Zoom, and it shares my screen.
Is it displaying a list of open
It's
applications?
a list of things like my iCloud Drive, but it's not showing me the presentation, like share my screen in general.
There may be a tab at the top that alternates between screen sharing versus document sharing at the top of the sharing window that you see?
No, just give me choices. All right. I'll have to go to Plan B and just share some points that you can find on our website. But the project, when you see the logo about the project, it was developed to reflect what the project can achieve in terms of peace, progress, and prosperity. And two key founders of this project, who sadly aren't with us anymore, George Kamal and Joe Henry, were very adamant about the importance of this project, as you heard at the beginning of this roundtable, to bring our nations together and achieve what will be a lasting benefit. And we know that this will be beneficial to the world. And as I said, it's certainly an opportunity for President Putin and President Trump to work together, because it's going to take leadership in both the United States and Russia to move this project forward. But history will tell there's really only one decision from these leaders that are going to benefit future generations. And so President Putin and President Trump have that opportunity. And the project brings together the ability to connect the two countries because of the distance that exists between Russia and the United States at the Bering Strait. The tunnel will be approximately 100 kilometers long. And Mr. Kirill is right. Mr. Dmitriev is correct in that advanced tunneling technology can compress the cost and the time to build this tunnel. But the tunnel is really the centerpiece of the project. It's much more expansive in terms of being able to connect Alaska through Canada to the lower 48. President Trump, in his first term, approved the U.S. border crossing permit that's necessary to build a railroad between the United States and Canada. And we've proposed that be the first phase that actually we could get underway next year. And then the rest of the project, which we were fortunate to see at the end of track in Yakutsk in eastern Siberia, would continue the access to Bering Strait across the permafrost, the tundra, which Russians have the expertise to build. A very important branch will be built to the peninsula of Magadan. But all that will benefit Russia by unlocking responsible access to their resources, as it would unlock responsible access to our resources in Alaska. And the project obviously has a lot of debate on costs, but these costs are really not significant when you consider the economic activity that it will support and the fact that the infrastructure of the tunnel and the bridges and the tracks will last for 150 to 200 years. So we've heard the cost being around $100 billion, but even if it's $200 billion, over a 200-year period, it's only $1 billion. And certainly we're creating far more economic activity in terms of existing global commerce and also access to responsible access to the resources. We call this project the Panama Canal of the 21st century because it will be that impactful, that game-changing as the Panama Canal was in the 20th century. Right away, we expect that we'll be carrying about 100 million gross ton miles a year because of existing trade between Asia and the United States and North America. And then on top of that would be the incremental traffic related to the access to resources in Russia and Alaska. And we also know that the project will bring remarkable benefits along the route to various communities because of access to water, electricity, telecommunications, and so forth along the route. So the project has multiple benefits and mutual benefits for each country that would be involved and connected by this. The key countries being United States, Canada, Russia, and China. And to move the project forward, we have said consistently that we need to put together a mutually beneficial treaty, the Intercontinental Railway Treaty. So I'll wrap up my remarks right there, but certainly be happy to share more details during the question period and appreciate the opportunity to provide those insights to everybody.
Thank you, Scott Spencer. I believe we'll be able to show some of the graphics from your website a little bit later so people can get some glimpse of this. Richard Freeman, who interviewed Scott Spencer, encourages you to sign up at eir.news and to email us at news@eir.news, and we'll send you a free copy of our in-depth magazine, including the interview with Scott Spencer. Scott appears in the film The Strait Guys, which is about the story of the project and the personalities involved in promoting it. You can watch the trailer and purchase access to the film at thestraightguys.com. That's STRAIT, thestraightguys.com. With that, we turn to our next speaker from the other side of the connection, Dr. Viktor Razbegin, an economist, engineer, consultant. He has been the vice president of the Interhemispheric Bering Strait Tunnel and Railroad Group and chairman of its Russian branch for more than 30 years. He is a former vice chairman of the Russian State Council for the Study of Productive Forces from 1997 to 2015, and a member of Russian and international engineering academies. Dr. Viktor Razbegin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I have to say thanks a lot for EIR for organization of this seminar, and personally for Helga, Zepp-LaRouche. First of all, I have to bring my sincere apologies for my not maybe fluent English, and I will start from some pictures for demonstrate what the modern view on the project is and what we will have in future. Just a moment. Okay. Did you see these pictures?
Yes, we see your screen.
Okay. This is satellite view for exactly Bering Strait and the future track of tunnel. The shortest distance between Alaska and Russia here is about 85 kilometers, but the track of tunnel will be not exactly at shortest line, will be not exactly the shortest line, because there are also two little islands, big and small diameter, or islands of Krozerstern and Tratmanova. So totally the length of tunnel will be from 95 to 113 kilometers. You can see the islands here in small windows, also the profiles of these islands. And the fact that there are these islands is very good for future construction of the tunnel, because we have to cross not the full Bering Strait, but three parts of them. Each of this part not longer than, for example, La Manche Strait. And here you can see not only the Bering Strait, but the total line, infrastructure line, which will be based on the railroad line. And as you see, is not the connection between Chukotka and Alaska, or Russia and United States. This is really main line which connect the greatest continent, Eurasia and North America. And a lot of countries will be involved in this project, because really it will be absolutely revolution, new logistic opportunity, because the delivery time for regions, internal regions of this continent, for example, northeast of Asia and United States, will be shorted from today's 30 days and more for 10-15 days. And the distance of this main line is not more than existing sea roads, and a cost for and cost of transportation also would be 15 from 15 to 30% lower than existing sea ways. Okay, next slide. Here is the same, but from the not globe view, but the map view. Creating this mainland, we close one of the several holes in old railroad network. You see some key points where is the cracks between parts of this system, and the key element of this of all rails, World Rails network, is the possibility to join the Eurasia and North American railroads network. To do this, we have to build about 4,000 kilometers railroad at the Russia side, and about 2,000 kilometers to join Alaska with nearest point of North American railroad network, for example, Fort Nelson, British Columbia. I have to say that for about 30 last years, since maybe 1991, when Interhemispheric Bering Strait Tunnel and Railroad Group Corporation start to work for this project, a lot of technical and economical materials were provided, and we now have all reasons to say that this project not only could be realized, and but we can say that we know how to realize this project. And in Russia, we organized a wide program of investigation, including engineering, geology investigation, technical investigation. We prepare two main variants of railroad main lines, north and south, and we know approximately how much it will cost. And also, we really started this project because when there in 1991, we had railroad to Yakutia. Now we have it up to Yakutsk. And last years, we start to prepare the documentation for railroad branch from Yakutsk to Magadan as a part of south variant of this main line. And also we are working now for railroad from Yakutia to Rodino and Jalin-Damokhe, so the shortest way to China, continuing this main line. Also in United States, President Trump in 29th, yes, make a decision and signed the right of way for railroad transborder mainland to connect Alaska and Canada, and also some routes for mainline A to A were started, but then up to now it was stopped. But also a lot of materials was prepared. Also, we have very detailed project for tunnel. You have you can see here the engineering geology condition and general view of the tunnel. Fortunately, here the engineering geology conditions here is quite well, and for such kind of construction, and we don't expect the complexity of this project more than for some existing project, for example, Severomoysky at Baikal-Amursk line and so on. Okay, here are the technical details. And okay, I have to say that I have to underline that now when we return to the idea of the tunnel, very old idea, more than 100 years, we start not on the empty place. We have a great we have a lot of material, technical, economical investigation, so on, to be sure that this project really is could be realized technically, and exactly, and it will it will have unique benefit for not only economic but the development of for a lot of countries and territories along the main line. And additionally to just commercial side of this project, ran for transportation, and which I have to say that also that if we will say only about the transportation benefit, this project could be economically efficient, and you can это купить свои в течение 15 лет. And full profitable for 10 or 15 years after the construction will be finished. But maybe even more benefit we will have from the development of huge territories with really huge deposits of mineral resources, and from developing these territories not only in Russia but in Canada, Alaska, and so on. But maybe the main thing, and I absolutely agree with Helga Zepp-LaRouche, that this project would be the material realization, the idea of peace from peace via development, peace via cooperation. So shortly, that's all I can answer your question if you have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Razbegin, for joining us today, and we look forward to having a discussion with you in that period. I will turn now to a video of Lyndon LaRouche and Helga LaRouche in Russia, having an exchange with Dr. Pobisk Kuznetsov, who was one of Russia's most visionary scientists. Kuznetsov, after this meeting, proposed that LaRouche's fundamental breakthrough in the science of physical economy demanded a new unit of measurement to measure potential relative population density as the best indicator of economic value and creative progress. Kuznetsov proposed that the unit be known as the La for Lyndon LaRouche. Let's turn now to this video.
Свою роль мы представляем нашему уважаемому боссу Линду LaRouche.
The point is that it all, as you know, in all scientific work, the ultimate thing is to reduce the issue before you to a simple test of measurement.
Дело в том, что в каждой научной работе очень важно сократить. Существенным является поиск способа измерения.
Now the question of measurement is man.
А вопрос измерения является человеком.
For example, how do we know something is true?
Ну, например, как мы знаем, что является что-то правдой или нет?
Formally, I can describe, and many have done that, describe exactly as Riemann does, how you can develop a system of scientific progress in a formal sense.
Например, с формальной точки зрения можно сделать так же, как и Риман. Как можно описать прогресс с формальной точки зрения? Да?
But what's the standard of that?
Каков стандарт? Каков единица?
How do you measure scientific progress?
Как вы измеряете? Какая единица измерения научного прогресса?
You are measuring not nature, you're measuring man's ability to conquer nature.
Вы измеряете не природу, вы измеряете способность человека обуздать природу.
Therefore, the test of whether the human cognitive apparatus is a reliable instrument for conquering nature.
То есть, или вопрос заключается в том, являются ли познавательные способности человека адекватной оружием для покорения природы.
What is the test? The test then comes
В чем
out.
же заключается испытание? В чем же
It
заключается?
comes out as a physical economic test.
Это физико-экономический тест.
And we increased mankind's power over the universe by this discovery.
То есть увеличили мы власть человека над природой, получив вот это открытие.
And we increased man's power to exist.
Увеличили мы способность или силу человека к выживанию.
And we increased life expectancy.
Увеличили продолжительность жизни.
And we improved demography.
Улучшили мы демографическую
And we improved function of the individual.
улучшили мы функции
A
индивида.
higher quality individual who lives longer, who is more productive.
То есть это человек, индивидуум более высокого качества, который более продуктивно работает и будет дольше жить.
Is it a method which preserves the achievements of past generations for the benefit of the future?
И сохраняет ли этот метод достижений предыдущих поколений для того, чтобы их использовали последующие?
So man is the measure.
То есть человек является...
I think we have to establish one point, which is fundamental.
Все монетаристы говорят альтернативы монетарной теории нет.
All the monetarists repeat constantly, there is no alternative to monetary
Вот
theory.
нужно именно когда нет альтернативы, говорить, есть
And we need
альтернатива.
to be able to say quite clearly when they say there is no alternative, to reply, there is an alternative, it's physical economy. That's very natural.
Естественно, научный подход
This
к
is a natural
социально-экономическому
scientific
системе.
approach to a social economic system.
The vast territory of Siberia and Russia in general, which has an extremely low population density. and with modern technology can become habitable, even the Arctic region, of course, with enough energy.
Дело в том, что мы можем взять территорию Сибири или в России страну, у которой очень низкая плотность населения, и современными, при наличии современных технологий все эти огромные пространства можно сделать обитаемыми.
It cannot become economically habitable without large-scale transportation networks.
Но с точки зрения экономической, эти регионы не могут стать обитаемыми без наличия хорошей системы транспорта.
And a transportation system must not only have a geographic destination, it must have an economic destination.
И транспортная система должна иметь не только географическую точку прибытия, но также экономическую точку прибытия.
So the way to develop Siberia is by having transportation links to South Asia and to China, which are the great concentrations of world population.
Дело в том, что можно развивать Сибирь, прокладывая через нее дороги в Южную Азию и в Китай, в котором огромное население.
This is strategically necessary for peace on the continent of Eurasia under present and coming conditions.
So thanks to that, this is a video from 1996 of the LaRouches in Russia. So before we turn to our next speaker, I'd like to show a couple of images from Russian Direct Investment Fund CEO Kirill Dmitriev, who has been having some fun on X. Here is one of his recent posts. This is a reproduction of a map labeled Kennedy-Khrushchev World Peace Bridge. Could and should be built between Alaska and Russia at once. This document appeared in a release of documents from Russia on Kennedy and the Kennedy assassination. This post got over 2 million views. Dmitriev followed up in many comments about the potential for Musk, and also he proposed a competition for people to create AI videos promoting the Bering Strait connection to help capture the imagination. So we turn now to our next speaker, the first deputy CEO of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, Azer Mamedov. The floor is yours. I believe you might be muted.
Sorry. Greetings from Moscow. First of all, thank you for your invitation to participate in the roundtable and the opportunity to listen to the insightful ideas of honored speakers and experts. I'll be concise in my remarks. First of all, we appreciate the expert discussions of this project and are delighted to see experts have been very positive on the prospects of the project. And we believe the project itself is very important as it will provide significant potential for economic development of the continents, not just countries. We do see that, and we agree with many experts that the project cost can be significantly brought down due to and thanks to modern technologies. We estimate the project cost of around 7 to 8 billion US dollars, and the project timeline would span across as much as eight years or so. We've been studying the project together with the expert community for some time already, and we'll continue to do so. Well, that's all on my side. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We turn next to an expert on construction, transportation construction, tunnels in particular, bridges in particular. This is Professor Enzo Siviero from Italy. He is the director of eCampus University. He is the vice president of the Mediterranean Engineering School Network and has held the post of professor at the University of Venice. Professor Siviero, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for this kind invitation. I listen a lot of things from my previous expert on bridges mainly, and I define the tunnel an underwater bridge because the term bridge means also bridging, means connection. And there is not connecting only territories, but also people, cultures, and emotion things like heart, for instance. I believe that this project is quite huge. I think that it's necessary to do it. It was necessary a few decades ago, but now more and more because the connection between Russia and United States is important for the whole peace in the world. Personally, a couple of decades ago, I proposed a connection with a part tunnel and part bridge between Sicily and Tunisia, because we have to connect the continents, not only the nations. Continents means also that the future is giving our the opportunity to increase each other with a brothership, a kind of friendship, of course, and mainly the economy should be extended to all people. This is the reason why I try to connect Africa with Europe, and then to connect also through Italy and Albania, just to reach Beijing, just a visionary ideas or railway, and starting from Cape Town. It means that this huge project could very nice be connected with Bering. It a kind of circumnavigation of all continents. Therefore, I think that we should form a kind of cooperation between different people from a scientific and technical level. And myself with my university, which is online university, we have actually more than 130 students. Being online, we can connect with all over the world, of course. I'm rector from this 10 years. I was teaching structures and bridges to the architects in the School of Architecture in Venice. Therefore, I'm dealing with the visionary ideas. You know, engineers are just connected with the earth, and architects, and sometimes they are flying, of course. But we need to work together because visionary and dreams is part of our life. I always say that if you don't like and love bridges, you have no future. The visionary engineering made the history of the human being. If we think to Suez Canal or other huge infrastructures, like, for instance, what we have done, we've seen in China, most of them I visit. Some world record of the span for the bridges, waiting in a couple of months, the Messina Bridge, which will be the biggest record, 3.3 kilometer span, connecting continental Italy with Sicily. What I say, I try to explore a little bit this idea. Of course, I would prefer intentionally the bridge, but due to weather condition, it's almost impossible to deal with the bridge. So the tunnel is the only possibility we have to connect. The presence of the two islands, small islands, are very important for safety situation, because after 30 or 40 kilometers, you need some safety escape necessity. And this means that you can have there, I'm dealing with safety, of course, you may expand and let people move in case of, for instance, fire problem or accident or other problem. As far as I know, the seismic situation is not so difficult to overcome, and therefore we think the feasibility study should be quite used, and maybe even the cost is not impossible, provided that we are connecting to continents. I'm always thinking about continents, because the importance of this infrastructure is related to continents and to all over the world. And I think infrastructure like this can change also the mentality of the people. This is a very important, the paradigm of how people think. Now that the connecting the connecting part measured in time and not in kilometers or miles, as we are in the States. And with this respect, to have the possibility to go by train from one continent to the other seems to me really very, very important. Nowadays, it's under construction, as far as I know, the tunnel between Denmark and Germany. And we are, I think, almost at the starting point of the tunnel Gibraltar. I mean, from Africa to Europe. So the technical operation of tunnels are very good, actually. And I think there is no real problem to do it, even in difficult situation. And the fact that we can go under the soil, I mean, under earth, it is very important because we can overcome the problem of weather condition, ice, and so on, because the concrete structures suffer so much about that. Then we have the wind problem and other things, the ice in the deck. Therefore, I mean, there's no doubt that this idea of tunnel is winning in a competition between the two ideas. But I insist so much on this safety, I mean, from technical point of view. From geopolitics, there is no doubt. I don't discuss about that because it's clear that in the history, all big structures are getting also the small structures, and the increasing of civilization pass through roads, bridges, and more recently on tunnels. If I remember, even the underway in London or in Hamburg, they are now 150 years old, and they work very, very well. And the tunnel of the Manica, I don't know in English how we say Manica. I mean, between France and English and British, sorry. I think this is very important because if you think what part of the world will increase this position, is the situation more difficult. I mean, Africa, first of all, because in the next 30, 40 years, they will double the population. But I think also Alaska from one side and Russia and Siberia on the other side, they will increase. And through this infrastructure, the possibility to increase will be much more fast. And for that reason, I mean, in a couple of generations, we will change and the world will have a new opportunity to develop even more than it is now at the day. I mean, this is a very, very quick idea. So my point of view, I'm a technician, of course, but I'm mainly dealing with bridges. And recently I had the opportunity also to deal with tunnel because just to come back to the Messina Bridge, Messina Bridge is a very important infrastructure. As I say, this 3.3 kilometer span suspension bridge, it will be the world record. Actually, the world record is in Çanakkale, it means Dardanelli in Turkey. It's a little bit more than 2 kilometers, but we have on one side, on the other side of the part, the Calabria and Sicily, we have a lot of tunnels to build because the connection needs to go through the mountains. And I call, in that case, earth bridge as underwater bridge, the tunnel, I think, because, you know, bridge is a very interesting word because it means connection, it means unions, it means brothership, it means dialogue. Dialogue is the first step of peace. And this word peace, to me, is equivalent to bridge, either tunnel or other kind of structures. Anyway, it means that when we build, it means there is a peace. When we destroy, that means there is water. I mean, a little bit poet, if you know, because I think even some humanistic part of engineering attitude is very helping in getting our dreams to be realized. Thank you so much. And I would like to thank Claudio Celani, who just invited me to this roundtable a couple of days ago. Unfortunately, I have no time to prepare any slides. But if you click, Enzo Siviero is my name, you find a lot of things. I'm rather old, you know. No, I'm different. I'm old in a different way, because the oldness is something which is not to me. I mean, our idea of to be old is when you feel you have no more time or willing to dare. Now we have to dare. And thank you, Helga, which I met a couple of years ago in Frankfurt, as I well remember. And I appreciate so much. And I presented to Nate, I call it the bridge between Africa and Sicily, which is feasible. I mean, this is not. It costs a little bit because it's around 140 or 150 billion dollars, but it goes even on economic, because we have to think to the investment in the future. No, as in this case in Bering connection, the future belongs to us. We have to interpret them, and this is the best way to do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Siviero, for your youthful presentation. We will turn now to our discussion period. Oh, no, excuse me, I'm terribly sorry. Our next speaker is Dr. Alexander Bobrov. He is the head of the Diplomatic Studies Division at the Institute of Strategic Studies and Forecasts at People's Friendship University. He is a foreign policy expert, a historian, a commentator. He writes frequently for RT and other publications. His PhD in history comes from MGIMO University, and in 2024, he published the monograph, The Grand Strategy of Russia. He was an invited speaker at the Schiller Institute's December 7th and 8th conference in 2024. Dr. Bobrov, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the floor, and I would like to thank Helga, Zepp-LaRouche and LaRouche Foundation for our fruitful cooperation, and I really hope that I can also introduce certain matters that were not covered by the previous speakers, because they were focusing mainly on technical or economic dimensions to this project, whereas myself, I would like to elaborate on a political and diplomatic aspects of our cooperation, because in my humble opinion, this particular project is not just about creating a brand new project that will bring together U.S. and Russia, but it is also the symbol of cooperation. And bridges and tunnels, just like diplomacy as a tool of statecraft, they actually bring together different nations with different backgrounds, with different opinions on the most important items of the political agenda. And I was happy to hear this information that for the first time, the idea of this tunnel appeared after the Caribbean crisis, the Kennedy-Khrushchev tunnel, when, as you remember, the whole world was on the brink of global nuclear war that could just destroy the entire planet. And just like diplomacy helped to get us out of this political deadlock, I believe that this particular project will also help us. But at the same time, there are several impediments that could bar us from getting to the desired result. And I would like just to enumerate a few of them. The first one being that, unfortunately, other NATO countries, especially the European Union, that are now torpedoing diplomatic efforts between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump ever since their first bilateral summit that was held in Anchorage in Alaska on August 15th this year. I do remember that just several days ago, during the consultations in the White House, Ukraine, Emmanuel Macron of France, Friedrich Merz of Germany, Alexander Stubb in Finland, and other European participants. They were trying to do their utmost to sway Donald Trump away from Russia so that he could also help Ukraine fight until the last Ukrainian soldier. And this is unfortunately not the way how diplomacy should work. There are certain representatives of the opposition within the Republican Party, namely Senator Graham, who believes that if you introduce more sanctions against Russia, it would be fruitful. And I believe that 3 years on, nothing happened. And if we take all the sanctions that were introduced against our country by the U.S. government ever since the 1970s, neither of them were actually efficient. So that's why I really put a lot of hopes on this particular project that should actually fight against all these destructive tendencies in our bilateral trade. Unfortunately, the Democratic Party that is now losing against the Republicans, against Donald Trump, who are actually responsible for both Biden war in Ukraine and the current crisis in our bilateral relations, with our trade amounting for almost zero. And that's why in order to jumpstart and kick off this project, we do have to understand that we're doing this in an absolutely frozen economic environment. And the last impediment that is also very important is, unfortunately, in a certain way, diplomatically speaking, fickleness of Donald Trump's public posture, because sometimes he said that he has good relations with Russia, with Vladimir Putin. Sometimes he said that he's dissatisfied with our national leader, and you never know what's going to happen, whether tomorrow he will not back away from what he said today. And that's why I really hope that we will be able to bring to an end what we're now planning in terms of this project. Because it isn't just about, bringing together Alaska with the far east regions of Russia. It is also creates a new environment for our bilateral cooperation that has huge potentials in different domains. If we're talking about arms control, New START agreement, and everything that has to do with arms race in general. If we're talking about our bilateral trade, there are numerous companies that could enter Russian market and vice versa. When we're talking about anti-terrorist cooperation, because terrorism is a kind of a threat and challenge that is posed to all countries in the world. And with our expertise, with our experience, both Russia and U.S. are the most important countries in fighting against terrorist organizations worldwide. If we're talking about cooperation in outer space, this is also a very promising domain for our bilateral cooperation. So you see that if there is a will, there is a way. And this is the kind of future of our bilateral relations that I really would like to see one day. And thanks to this project, I really believe that we're closer to this, I would say maybe rosy prospects, but general for the better future of our relations that we used to be prior to these plans that were announced on both sides, on the US and on the Russian side. So basically, this is it. That's all I wanted to say. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer. Thank you so much.
Dr. Alexander Bobrov, thank you. We turn now to our discussion period. As the panelists prepare themselves for this, I would like to ask Helga Zepp-LaRouche, the initiator of today's event, if she has any reflections based on what she has already heard. We also then have short comments and questions lined up from an American economic writer, a Russian-American businessman, an American political figure, and a Canadian rail engineer. So a lot of commentary ready to come in. Helga Zepp-LaRouche, would you like to reflect on what we've heard so far?
Well, I want to thank all the speakers for their very insightful contributions. And I think that the advances in the technology to build such tunnels which I think several engineer firms around the world have expressed. For example, one of them is the German engineer firm Herrenknecht. They built the tunnel under the Bosporus. They also said that they think this is eminently feasible. And obviously, it reflects the continuous ability of mankind to advance through science and technology and cooperation. And that is why I'm fundamentally optimistic, that the ideas, for example, of Vernadsky about the increase of the dominance of the noosphere over the biosphere is indeed a law of the universe. And, eventually man will become more reasonable through innovation, through the continuous discovery of scientific and technological ideas. So I just want to thank all of you. And I think also that the idea of the humanist aspect Professor Siviero had mentioned is obviously a part of this idea to build bridges. And, I think, we are humans, and that way we should find a way to behave as humans.
Thank you, Helga Zepp-LaRouche. So let me turn now to our full panel of speakers, and we'll see if anybody would like to offer any new reflections based on what you've heard from the other speakers before we turn to taking some general questions. Just raise your hand, or if you'd like to say something now. Yes, Scott Spencer.
So I want to, again, thank all the panelists, because for me, with a project of this magnitude, it's always important to listen and learn, and I learned more again today. I want to thank my fellow panelist and friend, Dr. Razbegin. His presentation had a lot of information that I wasn't able to share, so I appreciate his clarity there. And for the last speaker, Dr., how do you pronounce your name? You're on mute.
Dr. Bobrov. It's
yes,
Biberman
Dr.
in
Bobrov.
English.
Yeah, thank you for your insights, because we can't, we will find a way to work closer together. And the issues of Ukraine, for instance, came up in our visit with Russia back in 2018. So we can't just walk away and ignore the differences and the ways that put things forward in a mutually beneficial way. So I appreciate your insights. And, history has a lot of information for us to consider. And sometimes a solution to a dispute or disagreement is right under our nose, if we understand history. And so I speak as a private citizen, but I can tell you I know history, that many wars have been prevented, many wars have been ended with a simple solution, a land purchase. So perhaps a land purchase will be part of the issue of resolving the war between Ukraine and Russia, but that's not been discussed. We'll see. But certainly this project is a centerpiece for future success for our nations and the world. And so what I didn't get a chance to mention in my remarks is there's an example which I just saw yesterday morning. It's literally a shining star of the greatness of our countries, the United States and Russia and other nations working together. And that's the International Space Station that crosses overhead every 90 minutes in many parts of the world. And that is a shining example of the continued success and cooperation between the United States and Russia. As also, it cost over $100 billion. So certainly it's in the area of the price tag for the Intercontinental Railway. But unlike the ISS, which will be decommissioned in 2030, the Intercontinental Railway will have benefits for generations to come. So we know we can build on these successes that we've already achieved.
Great, thank you. Any other panelists would like to add anything else at this point? Okay. All right, well, let's turn to some of our questions and comments that have come in from the audience. First, we will hear from Richard Freeman. He is an American economics writer. He interviewed Scott Spencer for EIR. And if he's available and ready, we will bring him up.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just a moment, Richard. We're just getting you connected here. Just a moment, please. Well, we can hear you, so maybe you could start speaking, and we'll get your video along the way.
Is it possible to do a screen share or not?
Why don't you click the share screen button?
Okay, going to do that.
I'll let you know when you can click it if you're able to start.
Share, and I'll just hit share. Okay. Does anything
Richard,
show or?
Why don't you just start your comments? I'll let you know when you can try hitting share again, okay?
Okay, let me get out of this and back to where I was. Sorry. Okay, I just have something brief, but I was going to show something which I think will support just what Helga Zepp-LaRouche said, and particularly Dr. Razbegin and Scott Spencer, and I have one question. And the point I think that I would just emphasize is that just two short things. Dr. Razbegin showed this on his graphic, but just to make one point, if you look at the Baikal-Amur mainline, coming up from that going north is the rail to Yakutsk. And then there's a span that's very, very open. I know there's work being done to go over the Lena River, and the piles have actually been driven for a bridge for that. But it's a very great distance until you get to Cape Dezhnev or Uelin, which is the Russian side facing the Bering Strait. Likewise, from the United States and Canada side, you have Fort Nelson in Canada, and then there's nothing until you, unless you want to go by dog sled, to get to Cape Prince of Wales. Those two together are about 5,500 miles, or almost 800 kilometers, of double-tracked electrified rail, which we will need to build. Somebody might say, well, that's terrible. We have now an additional cost. Actually, it's not. It's a wonderful development. It will then open up building those rail lines, building the development corridors, which Helga Zepp-LaRouche spoke about and Lyndon LaRouche alluded to, which will then generate the farming, the factories, the towns, the cities, and so forth. It becomes a development vector. So I throw that out to keep in mind as to what's involved with this. And the second just support is, and Dr. Razbegin showed it, we have a map of the World Land Bridge, in which Lyndon LaRouche referred to the Bering Strait Tunnel project as the navel of the world. He said, take a view from the Arctic going south, instead of the way we normally tend to look at things. And if you do that, you can open up, as Helga described earlier, Ms. LaRouche, all the connections you can make by both commuter, but also by physical goods movement. And this will have a critical point. And I just wanted to mention that there is a plan for the Gibraltar Strait Tunnel. There are questions of plate tectonics, which are very, very real in the movement of the Africa and European plate. But if we do that, and we build that, and it's about 27 miles, about 40 kilometers, we will connect Europe to this whole world land bridge, to Africa, which will be the center of world economic development along with Asia by 2050. And they will go from a population of 1.55 billion to a population of 2.5 billion. And this, therefore, means that this connection, if we take the longest view, will have a tremendous effect. And so that, if we can get President Trump to think in those terms, he may not initially think in those terms, but if he works with President Putin, we can flip the whole world situation, as Mrs. LaRouche indicated, in a powerful way. My question to the panelists, and Mrs. LaRouche already addressed this in part, but I know that there are other people, is that as with the request by the Ukrainian acting president Zelensky for Tomahawk missiles, which do not right now carry nuclear warheads, but they were outfitted to do so. And if one were launched from Ukrainian territory, the Russians would not know whether it was nuclear or not, and that we could lead to a response. And once you get one nuclear weapon flying with respond on warning, you have a nuclear war. And so I would just like to ask that question again to all the panelists. I know that Mr. Spencer has some thoughts on what the danger is if you link AI to nuclear weapons. But the question I would just pose, and I think it's in part been answered, how will this stop nuclear war, which is very possible because of these things, as Dr. Bobrov said, about some of what's going on in Europe, where they're using Ukraine as a platform for military confrontation. How will this Bering Strait project and the World Land Bridge end nuclear war? Thank you.
That's a sharp question. Fantastic. Would anyone like to respond to this? Go ahead, Scott.
It's a very profound question that we can't ignore, because for all the success of this project or any other endeavors that our civilization pursues, we cannot ignore the risks of nuclear war. And so the prospects of this war between Ukraine and Russia continuing, the risks of the potential escalation of the use of Tomahawk missiles, these are all situations where we have to recognize that some of the worst wars were the results of things going sideways in unexpected ways, the fog of war, so to speak. And so in this situation, I would suggest as a civilization, we recognize, what do we do in our own communities when there's a fire? We don't stand around and argue and blame who started it, who's responsible for it. We work together to put it out. And in a situation where nuclear weapons are available, we should recognize it's a volatile situation, no matter how much diplomacy there is. And to Dr. Bobrov's point earlier, Russia is a great nation, and I have learned very much about the fact, as he pointed out, that threat-based diplomacy doesn't work. You have to find a path forward together in terms of mutually beneficial diplomacy. So with regards to the risk of nuclear weapons, we should not discuss this project without pointing out that it can provide a very strong foundation of working together so that we can pursue a future where we're reducing or eliminating nuclear weapons. Because as I pointed out to some people who are really surprised, I don't see how artificial intelligence, as it's introduced into command, control, and communications of these military operations, can coexist with nuclear weapons. We have to recognize that as a clear and present danger. And anybody who's a student of the history of nuclear weapons, including during the Caribbean or Cuban Missile Crisis, there were a number of close calls. And if you study those close calls, I don't think any of those close calls could have avoided nuclear war if artificial intelligence was in the equation of the decisions. Those wars, the use of nuclear weapons, were prevented by human intervention. So that's another reason of the urgency of now for this project to go forward, because certainly we're working together in a cooperative way. And also, we should recognize, as a civilization, if we're prepared, as each nation is, to fight a war 24 hours a day, why don't we have the diplomatic capabilities to find a mutually beneficial solution 24 hours a day? And I've already proposed previously that this dispute should involve a crisis resolution team that is negotiating 24 hours a day, not just waiting for when the weather is right to communicate. We should get it through, because projects like this have great benefits for all the nations involved. But for every year we're not building it, there's a huge opportunity cost, and there's a huge risk to long-term peace if we as nations aren't working in a mutually beneficial way on such projects as the Intercontinental Railway. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Razbegin.
Okay, I'm absolutely agree, and I want only very shortly to repeat the very simple idea which I have heard from Governor Hickel, that the single alternative of war is a big project. The same said Helga Zepp-LaRouche, his husband, that infrastructure project is a real road for the peace. It's really an answer for the question, because only the big projects when the various nations, various countries work together to create something really big could change the vector from confrontation to cooperation. So it's, I think that, and I absolutely believe that if this project was realized 20 years ago or 15 years ago, the degree of confrontation now will be absolutely not the same, Laura. And I could only hope that our leaders really could overcome the strong forces which, for the long history of this project, tried to, how to say, try to stop this project. And if they really do it, it will be the monument for both of them. We could not name the tunnel between Alaska and Siberia by their names, but their names will really stay in history, because I absolutely believe that this project, such kind of project, is really and unique way for peace.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Bobrov.
First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Spencer for citing several of my ideas, and I would like to respond to the question that was posed. I really believe that we are now undergoing a very severe crash test of diplomacy. And the irony of history is that we are now living in October 22nd, 2025, 63 years after the Cuban-Korean Missile Crisis, day by day. Occurred on October 16, October 28th, 1962. And the only way out of that crisis used to be diplomacy. And I really believe that now we have to apply the very same method. And if we're talking about tomahawks, if Donald Trump were to send tomahawks to Ukraine, it would actually lead to a new stage of escalation and actually nullify all the diplomatic efforts that were undertaken on both sides by the U.S. Representative Steve Witkoff, for example, who used to come to Russia on several occasions, that were made by our ministers of foreign affairs. Especially, I would like to pay special tribute for Mr. Dmitriev and his efforts on a back channel diplomacy. So I believe that we have to use track number 1, track number 2, track number 3 diplomacies, all track diplomacies to bring to an end this particular project so that it could actually be realized, and do our utmost so that we could actually agree upon not only in terms of what is going on now around Ukraine, but generally. So this is my idea. Thank you so much.
Dr. Bobrov, your point is well taken, because now's the time to negotiate, as I said, in a mutually beneficial way. As we saw in the Cuban-Caribbean Missile Crisis, a nuclear crisis is a bad time to try to figure things out.
That's an understatement, huh? Okay, well, let's, are we able to bring up Yuri, or should we take some written questions?
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be in such
Hello.
a great company of experts. So I describe myself as Russian-American businessman, as I lived half of my life in Siberia and the other half in the United States of America. My company was involved in export from the US to Siberia technologies and machinery. And I can tell you that this equipment lasted for many, many years in the harshest conditions you can imagine. Like in Yakutia, under -45, which is the same in centigrade and Fahrenheit. But this is not the main point. There was a okay, I started video. There was a short video of Mr. Lyndon LaRouche being in Moscow at a conference, and I paid attention what he was saying. He asked a question: what is scientific measurement entity or unit? And he answered this: a man, which is very important. So we've been talking about technologies, but nobody mentioned what people in Siberia and Alaska are thinking about this project. And a few days ago, I've been contacted by a Russian journalist in Moscow, and they asked me this question: what people in Alaska think about the project? And I started calling my friends in Anchorage. What, guys, do you think about it? And the answer was most of people would think great about the Bering project, but we should ask more natives, because they would think, okay, what would happen to our fish, which is probably the best quality in the world? What would happen to the animals in the area? And we know what happened to gas project in Alaska, which was stopped because the natives did not want it. Certainly, this is a little bit different, and from ecological point of view, it may not present any danger, but still, we should ask more native people about what they think, their opinion. So overall, I believe it's a hope to peace. It's the greatest project of 21st century, and it kind of reflected John Lennon's song, Imagine. Imagine all the people sharing all the, that is all about this project. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. That was, I didn't properly introduce our questioner here. This is Yuri Pantyukhin. He's a Russian-American businessman and the vice president of the sister city relationship between Eugene, Oregon and Irkutsk, Siberia.
So a very short comment about native people of Alaska. The Association of Native People of Alaska in NOM from the very beginning became a part of Interhemispheric Bering Strait Tunnel and Railroad Group. This is an answer, I think.
Good. Let me turn now then to several questions that came in by writing. I'll just ask a few of them, and the speakers, the panelists can respond as they like. So one of the questions is about the policy side of the project. For example, negotiating with U.S. agencies, dealing with environmental interests, private landowners, native corporations in Alaska. How are steps coming along to resolve potential land use issues? This is one question that came in. Another question, Peter Schultz, who I believe we'll be able to hear from a little bit later, is announcing that he's offering an update on the Canadian side of the rail as part of this whole project. Rick asks that we remind people of the film that is starring Scott Spencer. That's thestraightguys.com, S-T-R-A-I-T, thestraightguys.com. Another question, Regarding the extreme weather conditions and the length of the route, would magnetic levitation rail be an appropriate technology for this route? And yeah, let me pose those for starters. And actually, I'm gonna ask one more. I'll put these all in the mix. This is from an American engineer. He says, can Scott Spencer or any of the other speakers comment on the existing capabilities to build this? Although Musk may be proposed for political reasons, already a 15-meter diameter tunnel was dug under Seattle by a Hitachi machine named Big Bertha. Interestingly, the LaRouche idea for a peace treaty between the Soviet Union and the United States was based on mutual increasing the productive powers of labor. This should obviously be the way to encourage the Europeans, whose economies are in free fall, to join in. Financing. This would have to involve a government-to-government agreement for long-term cheap credit, would it not? Perhaps bonds with guarantees from the U.S. and Russian governments. And he points to demonstrations in Canada that there is an interest in moving away from their British roots and having a greater sense of independence. So does anybody have any comments on the issues of financing, maglev technology, land use, and political progress in resolving these issues? Yeah, please.
Well, certainly I hope the other colleagues may want to add to this, but I'll just say quickly, in terms of land use, again, you can go to our website, intercontinentalrailway.com, and we spent a considerable amount of time meeting with Native American corporations, as Viktor Razbegin related to as well. We've listened to a number of the residents across Alaska to understand their way of life and how we can complement what they do and not undermine their traditions. And I made a commitment to them, and I've continued this when I go to talk about the project to some decision makers in Washington. They want to be involved in those discussions and those decisions. So number one, that'll be important. Much of the land is either native corporation lands in the United States or federal lands. As far as financing is concerned, there are a number of instruments, whether it's the issue for financing, engineering, construction. It all ties together with the need to have an intercontinental railway treaty between China, Russia, the United States, and Canada. That will serve as the foundation for the future success of the project. And in terms of maglev, I would say that really has limited applications where there's dense population and needs for high speeds. In this situation, it's a very difficult territory to operate over. And you want to have interoperability so that a container can be loaded on a rail car in points in China and operate straight through the system throughout North America. And those systems aren't compatible with maglev right now. So that's why I think it would be rather limited to see that technology emerge.
Mr. Mamedov, Professor Siviero, would you like to weigh in on any of these issues that were just raised before we move on to the next round of questions?
I think that I agree with all the people that they spoke. The problem of maglev, I think it's not feasible in this case for a lot of reasons. There is no time now to discuss. It's very, very good for passengers, but I think this tunnel should be mainly devoted to not only the people, of course, and because as we connect to continents, we have to think about the transportation of goods, of course, and this means also increasing of the civilization. I would say, sorry, I don't change. I mean, it's my English is not so perfect anyway. If I speak about English, I say about bridges, I have no problem. But if I widen a little bit, then I'm better in French and a little bit also in German, because I've been in German for 4 months, exactly 60 years ago. Not, I'm so old. I say I am 4/5 of century, not 80 years old.
Congratulations.
Because this means that my goal is the unity. It's not true, of course, but we have to believe. And the visionary engineering, this I insist on that. The visionary engineers means the future, means getting the dreams into a reality. And dreams are the most important thing. Humanization, humanitas, it comes from the Latin, even from the Greek, of course. This is also a nice thing. Speak about beauty, speak about quality, speak about heart, speak about emotion, speak about friendship, love. We have to love each other. This is my point of view, because the philosophy of life means that we have to get something related to human life. That's
Well,
it.
thank you. Thank you for bringing in the point about love, because I have to tell you, I was really blessed not only to travel across Alaska, but to travel across Russia. And I love the people that I met. They were so genuine about the vision, the opportunity. And one of my friends who's in the film, The Straight Guys, is the late, great mayor of the city of Nome in Alaska, Richard Beneville. He was a performer on Broadway before he changed his whole life and came to Alaska. But he said basically what you said, Professor. You have to visualize the success. And he used to tell us, visualize the success of global commerce, carrying peace, progress, and prosperity across Alaska to Russia. So those are very important things to hold on to. And one other point I want to make very quickly here that builds, first of all, point of information, my friend Dr. Viktor Razbegin is also in the film. So you'll get a chance to see his perspectives as well. And to build on his map, I'm glad he showed the map of the world from the perspective of the Bering Strait, because most people geographically think, oh, you're really taking cargo out of the way up north. But truthfully, it's the shortest point between the economic and population centers of North America, Russia, and Asia. But also, if we look at the success of global commerce in the last, if we look at the success of global commerce, in the last, as you can see how it's linked, in the last 50 or more years through containerization and so forth, look at the growth of ports throughout Asia and China. Look at the growth of ports in North America. If you're going to sustain that growth for the next 100 to 200 years of this project, you can't build enough ports without tearing up land, impacting cities. So that's another reason why the Intercontinental Railway is the Panama Canal of the 21st century, because it reduces the need to have those environmental impacts of expanding and building more ports on both sides of the Pacific.
Okay, and if that's there's no more right now, we'll turn over to the next question in a moment from an American political figure. First, I wanted to show another infrastructure project that intersects, or frankly, is part of conceptualizing development in the region overall, and that's the North American Water and Power Alliance. This is a program that would bring water from Alaskan and Canadian rivers down into the United States and also Mexico to bring water to arid areas, revolutionize agriculture, potentially refill shrinking aquifers in the Midwest. Here's another view of this. The project was initially proposed during the time of the Kennedy administration by Parsons Engineering. And in the next image, I can show you how oh, that's it. Okay, well, cliffhanger. That's what we'll show you on the NWAPA for now, the North American Water and Power Alliance. Okay, so for our next comment and question that we will bring up, we will hear from American political figure Diane Sayre. Diane has run for numerous offices, and including in the last 2 Senate races in New York State, where she achieved the seemingly impossible goal of getting 45,000 signatures to get herself on the ballot as an independent. Diane Sayre.
Thank you very much. I presume I can be heard. And I wanted to bring up something which everyone here has very kindly not mentioned, which is the horrific state of the United States right now, our physical economy, the political dynamic. As people may be aware, we just had, I don't know, 5 million or 7 million people in the streets at these rallies last Saturday, saying no more kings. But I would say what's really going on is that you have an economic collapse. If you think about the places where President Trump has proposed to send the military, Los Angeles, Chicago, Baltimore, what do these cities have in common? They are port cities. What has happened to the port cities of the United States? Baltimore, a dear friend of ours, Ned Rosinski, did a study of the collapse of Bethlehem Steel, and then the city opened up to become a haven for drug trade, etc., with a huge percentage of the African American population going to prison. So I think that this idea is not just a nice idea. I think it is an urgent necessity for the United States to build it. Coming from New York, I was thinking about the effect of the Erie Canal, which opened up the entire middle section of the country to another port city, Manhattan. New York City right now has 1 out of 7 children who experienced homelessness in the last year. But imagine if a child of 5 years old could think that by the time I am 13 or by the time I am 15, I will be able to get on a train in New York City and travel to Alexandria in Egypt or China. And one thing that comes to mind, perhaps because of my growing up in the country, is the difference between a pond, which is stagnant, which has no water coming in and no water flowing out. What kinds of horrible bacteria and ugly things grow there? Brain-eating bacteria, maybe that's the problem we're having in the United States. But when you bring water flowing through, you create a directionality, you create a potential for growth. And if you think in your mind's eye of all of these port cities in the United States, which could be revitalized, having access through a rail corridor to China, India, Russia, 3.5 billion people, the complete transformation of the way we are thinking. And I think the decision to do this would change the thinking enormously of the entire American population to be able to think clearly, strategically, to not fall for the lower level types of division, survival of the fittest that happen when you are stuck in this little stagnant pond. And I'm just curious if some of the panelists have thoughts about this, because I think it's a very big deal. And I think the transformation could be virtually instantaneous if we had the vision to take hold of it.
Yeah. Would anybody like to respond? Yes, I'll get Zepp-LaRouche.
Well, thank you, Diane, because I can absolutely add the economic collapse of Germany to the picture you are showing about the United States. I mean, Germany right now is in a free fall. I don't think the world has recognized how dramatic this is. All the middle-level industries are just collapsing, basically because of a lack of access to the previous relatively cheap Russian gas. And the European Union right now has basically made a rule, even a law, that the future should never again buy Russian energy. This is suicide. so I would be interested to hear from maybe some of the panelists, maybe Mr. Spencer and Mr. The other Russian. Is there any offer, let's say, if there would be such an interrail consortium, an offer where you could basically say what would be the interest of other countries to co-invest, because the dimensions are so big, and there are so many countries which are raw material poor, like Germany. Germany has no raw materials to speak of. Germany has no energy worth to speak of, especially after the exit from nuclear energy. I think, if there would be, and many people were talking about this vision, and I think, Elon Musk has called for AI animations about the Bering Strait, and I can imagine that if maybe creative people would show the potential which would flow out of the construction of the Bering Strait, the development of the Far East of Russia, how it would increase the living standard for all countries, how it would eliminate poverty, really show that this is a potential game changer to alleviate poverty everywhere in the world by offering productive capacities. I think such an initiative could really shift the public opinion a lot.
Anyone else like to comment? Scott, you're muted.
I'll certainly make a couple of quick comments, but I would love to hear the insights of my fellow panelists. And, going back to the point that the professor made about love should be considered in this equation, because there are differences amongst us, certainly within the United States right now, and there is turmoil over those differences. But we should not ignore the need, the benefit, and the opportunity to love each other. And I would say, despite the disagreements in the United States, I would never bet against the United States. We certainly have a lot to be proud of our success, despite all the challenges that we will celebrate next year with our 250th birthday. But we should also recognize that some of the different disagreements in Europe, like let's not buy Russian oil, I said earlier about mutually beneficial diplomacy. But that means when we work together in that way, I don't want to do it at a detrimental way to Russia or other countries. I want to see them succeed too. So if they say, wait a minute, we have to be in the equation to be able to sell our oil, let's find a mutually beneficial way to see your country succeed as well. And I want to make one other point. You mentioned about looking at this project through different eyes. I don't want to spoil the movie, but you have to recognize when you see this movie how we're going to benefit generations to come, children to come. And in the movie, you'll see something about how children can look at this project that I think is absolutely fascinating. I love it, and it's something that inspires me. So check out the movie without me spoiling it for you, but they'll see it that way. But I'd love to hear the panelists' takes on these issues that were just raised by the previous comments.
Yeah, would anyone else like to weigh in at this time? Yes, please.
I want to say some words about another opportunity in view of the tunnel between Alaska and Russia. We discussed mainly today the railroad, transcontinental railroad. But there is opportunity to join also the electric power systems of Russia, Eurasia, and United States. The effect of joining of two big systems like this, the economical effect is about from 8 to 10% of the capacity of the smallest of this system. It's equal the creation of several really big hydropower stations. So only from the joining this system you can use the difference in time, difference in peak loading, and so on. And you really can get the effect equal for creation as several very big hydro power stations. And also unique opportunity connecting with this project is also to use the potential of tidal power. Tidal power station, the physical opportunity for creation of such station is unique in two places all the world. It's Inlet Cook, and at the Russian side, it's the Penzinsky Inlet. The height of tidal there more than 18-20 meters. 18 in Penzinsky and 20 in Cook Inlet. It gives the opportunity to create power tidal station capacity jointly more than 100 gigawatt. It's huge energy. And now when the deficit of energy is one of the challenge for humanity, and when the development of artificial intellect and IT technologies will climb more and more energy. It's one of the way to get ecologically free type of energy from such kind of tidal power station.
And the right of way, the Intercontinental Railway will transmit access to that energy to communities and lower their cost of living in that respect. That's a very important point, to improve their quality of life.
You're absolutely right.
Jason?
Sorry, Richard. Send me a note and maybe I can read it, but I'm sorry, we've got one more speaker that I want to bring in to pose a question. That's Peter Schultz. So Peter, I hope you're ready. We do have your image of Canadian Rail, so you don't need to share your screen. You can just refer to it and we should be able to bring that up. I know that we're coming up on time, so I'll ask Peter Schultz to be quite brief, and then we will be able to take final comments from each of our panelists. So do we have Peter Schultz from Canada available?
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Great. I do not see a share screen button, so I'm just going to do
You don't need to share your screen. We can put up the image for you. Would you like it up now?
Sure.
Okay, here we go.
The one of Bering Strait or the one of the map? That one, okay. This is, speaking of love, this became a project of love. I've put about 2,000 hours of work over the last 3 years into defining all potential routes through Canada to Alaska. I had worked for Alaska to Alberta Railway and was there when the company failed due to misappropriation and watched as Canadian authorities blocked the assets of A2A Rail from being resold to American interests, such assets as a cross-border permit, freight forwarding agreements with DND for construction on the Alaska side, sharing agreements with the Alaska Railroad down to Anchorage, such. This was all blocked by Canadian authorities from being resold back to American interests after the collapse of A2A Rail. So I really think, and my associates would definitely put the Canadian political situation as being a primary risk item for connecting to Alaska. However, some of the provinces disagree with the federal government and are in active negotiations with senior American authorities. But the audience does need to be aware that the Canadian political establishment is not in favor of a connection through Canada to Alaska and beyond. And we are working as best we can around that. If we go to the other screen, something of interest. This is an idea for a floating tunnel through Bering Strait. connecting the 7 seamounts that come within 95 feet of the surface with resurfacing at the Diates Islands. I did look a little bit at connecting this point on Alaska over to Fairbanks, and I think that connection will cost about as much as this railway, based on the amount of permafrost we're dealing with. I haven't looked any really closely at the Chukchia side, but I would not underestimate the cost of getting across the permafrost lands on either side to higher population centers. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Peter Schultz. And I'll share your contact information with panelists who may wish to get in touch with you to learn more. So that's all the questions that we're going to be able to take today. I appreciate the others that came in, including about how the Bering Strait as a political bridge between the U.S. and Russia also poses the issue of returning to the Strategic Defense Initiative and the U.S. and Russia collaborating on defense against nuclear weapons. It's really thinking big. But let's turn it now to final comments from each of our panelists. So let's go in the reverse order that you spoke. So Dr. Bobrov, I'm putting you on the spot for your closing remarks.
Well, once again, I would like to thank you for holding this discussion and especially for this attention that you bring to this particular issue, because as I see in the US, there are so many reactions, whereas in Russia, we are more skeptical about the prospects of this cooperation in general, and this project in particular, mainly because in the past, we used to pin big hopes on events that never happened, that never unfolded. So I really would like to also hope that we would be able, by joining our efforts, to bring this project into fruition. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Bobrov. Professor Siviero.
As I said, I believe we have to take only the technical feature and the scientific way. This is somehow already thought or examined because the feasibility study is quite easy, actually. The technology is good, but we have to insist on this friendship, brothership, love. It means peace. This is one of the most, or mainly the most important item we have to follow. And when you build a bridge or a tunnel, or as I said, an underwater bridge, it means bridging gaps, bridging cultures, bridging hearts. And sharing hearts is also one of the most important issues we can imagine. Among the Schiller Institute, this is something that is visible for all people that want to see and not to be blind. This is my point of view. As I'm an engineer, but my heart is from a human being, and I am also, I have another honor degree in architecture because my bridges are all nice, but beauty is not only what you see, beauty is what you feel and what you transmit. That's my main goal, and I like to share with you. And I thank you again for this kind invitation. I had a lot of things very interesting, and I get it in my magazine. I have a magazine named Galileo. You can imagine why I'm from Padua. Therefore, I mean, I will do my best to share all these ideas to my Italian people and international organization. I am a member of them. I don't enumerate them. So thank you so much. Sorry, I had a stop because my phone was without energy, but okay. No problem. Everything can be solved if you want, because when you want, then you find the way to do. This is great, eh? Thank you.
That's right. Professor Enzo Siviero, thank you. Let's turn now to Azer Mamedov from the Russian Direct Investment Fund. Do you have any final remarks that you'd like to make?
Well, first of all, I would like to reiterate the gratitude for the extremely insightful discussion that we've all been part of for the last 2 hours. It's been joyful to listen into speakers talk about so many aspects of the project. We from the side of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, we are economists, so we would focus more on the economic side of the project. And we, as I mentioned, we've been studying it for some time already, and we are very committed to find a way to implement the project in the near future. Thank you.
Sir Mamedov, thank you. Let's turn to Dr. Viktor Razbegin.
I just want to say another time, thanks a lot to EIR organizing this meeting, to Schiller Institute, and personally to Helga Zepp-LaRouche for this beautiful chance to discuss this really unique and outstanding project. After a long period of freezing, we have now a chance to do something for realizing this project, and I very hope we together will do what we can to use this chance. Thank you. And I hope that discussion and seminars like this will continue in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Razbegin. Scott Spencer?
Well, thank you, everybody, for gathering together. Thank you for those who have listened and asked questions. It was a great opportunity for me to learn. I'm glad to see my friend, Dr. Viktor Razbegin, here again today. And for more information, you can go to the website, intercontinentalrailway.com. And I would encourage you to look at a fascinating film, The Straight Guys, to look at the inflection point. And I would just say we have an opportunity in this inflection point to show the world a lot of love. So I'd just like to build on the call of Mr. Dmitriev, the head of the Russian Direct Investment Fund. Let's build this together. And what a great gift we will give for generations to come of peace, progress, and prosperity.
Great, thank you. Scott Spencer, Intercontinental Railway. So that brings us to the initiator of today's discussion, Helga Zepp-LaRouche. Please, how would you like to conclude our discussion?
Thank you, all the speakers. I also learned a lot. One thing which Dr. Spencer, you said, actually gives me a lot of pain. You said that AI and nuclear weapons cannot coexist. That's a very scary thought, because if you remember that the Israeli strikes on Iran in June were based on the information of an AI program of Palantir, which was given to the International Atomic Energy Agency, and that was the basis for the attack about the so-called status of Iranian nuclear weapons. Then 5 days later, that information was revoked because it turned out that it was fraudulent, because it was based not on facts, but on some algorithm, and the damage was done. So that this was only conventional weapons, but just imagine if there would have been nuclear weapons involved. And I can only say that that episode or that anecdote is important to underline the absolute urgency to change directionality. And I think this idea of a vision is also very important. You know, the German economist Friedrich List, who, by the way, influenced Count Witte, for example, and many others, but in Russia has a certain tradition. He had the idea that if infrastructure would eventually grow into a planetary network connecting all continents and all countries, then that would be the basis for a complete change in the mentality of the people, and world peace would be consolidated. And I think that that is exactly what the idea of the World Land Bridge stands for, because, you know, in the beginning, people always think, oh, you can't go with a railway quicker than 30 kilometers or everybody will die of a heart attack. Then they're building now maglev trains in China, which go 600 kilometers, and there are loops being planned which go 1,000 kilometers. So I think the idea of infrastructure, connecting people and changing the mentality, you know, by making people to grow into the one humanity, overcoming geopolitics and understanding that we are really sitting in one boat as the one mankind. I think that this Bering Strait is a very, very important step in that direction. So maybe we should continue this discussion in a few weeks or months from now, and hopefully we can spread this widely and get more people to support it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you to all of our speakers. I'd just like to make a couple of closing announcements. As a reminder to everyone, please sign up with us at eir.news. You can get our daily intelligence briefing for $10 a month. You can get a premium subscription for $50 a month, including our in-depth weekly analysis. Both of those subscriptions offer a free trial and also a discount if you subscribe for a year in advance. I'd like to end with the question that was sent in for the panelists, but I think this is a good question to pose to the audience for us to think about what we do coming out of this event. It comes from congressional candidate Jose Vega, who points out that during the Kennedy administration, we saw the enormous contrast between the Cuban Missile Crisis, during which Kennedy said that it is the policy of the U.S. to regard a nuclear missile strike anywhere in the Western Hemisphere as a strike on the U.S. that would require a full retaliatory response to the Soviet Union. And then you contrast that with the image that Kirill Dmitriev popularized of the JFK-Khrushchev World Peace Bridge. So the question for us all is, how can we use this project to change popular thinking and the outlook of our policymakers? So thanks again for joining us. Think about how you're going to answer and act on that question. And again, please join us at eir.news and become a subscriber. Thank you.